They're the best poker players in the world. And in the next 30 minutes, they'll help you become a better player. Led by the professor, Howard Lederer, FullTiltPoker.net has created an exclusive classroom to teach the strategies, techniques, and nuance that separate poker winners from losers. Joining Howard in studio today will be champion poker players Phil Ivey, Jennifer Harmon, Lane Flack, Phil Hellmuth, and Chris Ferguson. It's a rare opportunity to learn from the best. FullTiltPoker.net presents Learn from the Pros.
Hi, everybody, and welcome inside the FSN Poker Room. Now, whether you dabble in tournament play or you just get together with some of your buddies on a Saturday night, we think the next 26 weeks will help you feel a bit more confident on the felt. As FullTiltPoker.net presents Learn from the Pros. He would be the pro, everybody. Howard Lederer. I'm Chris Rose. Terrible amateur, at least when it comes to poker. Welcome, buddy. Good to see you again, Professor.
Great working with you. Looking forward to this.
Now, at the end of the 26 weeks, I'm guessing I should be able to sit down at the table and play with you and Phil Ivey and Chris Ferguson and the rest of the crew, right?
Well, if I've convinced you of that, my job will be done, yes.
Do I look that dumb? Do I really?
Well, you know, no, but that's why it's going to take 26 weeks.
Very funny. We're going to be covering it all over the next 26 weeks. Bluffing, also a bunch of theory, how to play with a big stack, how to play with a short stack. But we're going to start it off today with the home run, the coup de grace of everything, the most powerful play in poker. It is the all-in.
I'm all in.
I'm all in.
I'm all in.
Well, you're right about that, Chris. The all-in No Limit Hold'em is the most devastating, most powerful weapon a player can use. Now, in a lot of forms of poker, you can't use the all-in. Limit poker limits you each street as to what you can bet. But in no-limit poker, whether it's before the flop or after the flop, you can move all in and put that maximum pressure on your opponent, and there are a lot of reasons to do it.
All right, we've laid out a few different scenarios for everybody at home. The first one, protect the best hand pre-flop. And actually, we're going to show your sister, Annie Duke, taking on Thomas Thunder Keller.
Well, here's a classic situation here. We see Annie has the king-queen on the button. Thomas Thunder Keller in the big blind has the two queens. That's a very strong hand, but it's vulnerable to any hand that has an ace or a king in it, which we see Annie does have that. Annie raises the button. Thunder Keller re-raises. Nice standard play. Annie, thinking maybe Keller is trying to run over her, raises him back. And at this point, he's still pretty sure his queens are good, but he knows there's a good chance it's vulnerable. You see here, Annie has a 31% chance of winning, and he's out of position here. He's got more chips than Annie, and he just uses that all-in move here to end the pot before the flop. Don't give her that 31% chance to draw out and beat him, and you see here.
Your sister gets out of the way right there. Now, once again, that was protecting the best hand pre-flop. What about post-flop? I think you actually picked out this videotape right here because it involves you and Gus Hansen in Poker Superstars 1. Heads-up play.
Well, you know, post-flop, you get a lot of information as the hand moves along, and a lot of situations come up, again, where you want to either make the draw pay or you want to protect your hand. Here we have Gus Hansen raising before the flop. Queen 9, solid raising hand in a heads-up situation. I call with a marginal hand like Queen 7. I catch a lucky flop. I check it to Gus, hoping he's going to bet where I'm going to move in, but he checks back. And now we see the deuce of clubs hit. And this is a card that worries me.
I'm all in. I'm going to call.
You don't have the best hand.
You have a 7?
But your club's good. Well, and you see here, that deuce of clubs, I was worried that he might have a high club, and I know I have to make him pay. So by moving all in and forcing him to pay to try and hit that club, I was able to end that final table right there on that hand.
And he didn't connect on the flush, which was the key. By the way, just to let everybody know, you did win that round of Poker Superstars. Gus Hansen took the entire cake, though.
Gus was amazing that tournament, yes.
It's all right. You can still smile. You did pretty well there. Finally, you always want to apply pressure to your opponent. We're going to show Daniel Negreanu. He's one of the best in the business at doing that. He's wearing the hockey jersey, taking on Freddie Deeb. What did he do so well here?
Well, you know, these first two examples, best hand protecting. Now here's a situation where Daniel is going to have a drawing hand. He calls here before the flop. He calls the small raise from Freddie with the 10-8, and he catches a nice flop. He catches an up and down straight draw, and if we look at the odds here, he's 49% to win the hand. So here, what he's going to do is he's going to go from 49% to win the hand. He's going to use that all-in move here to end the pot right now, knowing that even if he gets called, he has about a 49% chance to win the pot. Notice he's now gone from 49% to he's got the check mark, and he wins the pot.
So the key
Powerful
is
move.
be aggressive when it comes to moving all in. But sometimes, amateurs, me included, we get a little nervous, and sometimes we get a little over-aggressive, right?
Well, you know, I think the all-in move, devastating, powerful move, but it gets overused by amateur players, and we'll see that next.
Yeah, the professional will show it off next.
Coming up, some of the greatest names in poker gather in the Fox Poker Room for a no-holds-barred, anything-goes roundtable conversation. You want to learn some great poker moves? Listen up. Plus, learn how Jesus performs this miracle. You'll never look at fruit the same way again. But up next, stop losing with good hands. Class is in with the professor when Learn from the Pros continues.
Time for a poker pop quiz.
You're all in before the flop, but your opponent called with a pair of aces. Beside the other two aces, what hand would you most want to have? Is the correct answer A, 5-6 of spades, B, Queen Jack of spades, C, Ace King of clubs, or D, a pair of kings? The answer when we come back.
FullTiltPoker.net presents Learn from the Pros. Brought to you by FullTiltPoker.net. Learn, chat, and play with the pros. FullTiltPoker.net presents Learn from the Pros.
Before the break, we asked, you're all in before the flop, but your opponent called with a pair of aces. Besides the other two aces, what hand would you most want to have? The correct answer is A, 5-6 of spades, which would beat pocket aces 23% of the time, just beating out Queen Jack suited.
We are back with Professor Howard Lederer, and Howard, I got it wrong again. Why 5-6 of spades in that case?
Well, in Hold'em, when you're beat, you want to have a hand that is very dissimilar to the hand that has you beat. If you have a similar kind of hand, you're usually in big trouble. Really what this quiz highlights is that when you raise with two aces, you're probably more likely to get action from hand C and D. But if you limp in, you might let a hand in like hand A, the 5-6 suited, and that has the best chance to beat you.
Well, Howard, once again, the topic of the day, the all-in move. Let's show you one of the errors made by the amateurs out there in tonight's edition of Beginner's Blunders.
Well, here we have a situation where Dan is in first position, and he looks down at a pretty solid hand, a hand like 2 10s, but he makes a classic error. He likes the hand, he doesn't really know what to do with it, thinks about it for a minute, and then he just decides, you know, I'm just going to move all in. And there's a big problem with this hand. We're going to highlight both of them here in this demonstration. Fold it around to Jessica on the button, and she looks down at 2 8s. 2 8's a pretty solid hand, but Dan has committed so many chips to the pot, she rightly figures they're probably beaten. She just throws them away. Here's a situation where he could have gotten action from a hand where he had beat. The hand got out of the way. Now Damon, in the big blind, looks down at 2 kings. Pretty easy decision for Damon. He calls Dan, and Dan's in big trouble. He's going to have an 18% chance here to survive.
So sometimes we just overvalue what we're doing at the beginning here by pushing all in.
Well, you know, it's more than just overvaluing. I think Dan was a little worried that maybe his 10s were beaten, and his defensive move there was just to move all in instead of leaving himself options. What he really did was he closed out the hands he might have beat. He paid off to the hands that had him beat.
Okay, so Dan's going to hit the rewind button, and he's going to get a chance to re-tee. A mulligan, if you will. Now what?
Well, we'd all like to have a few of these in our poker career. You know, we're going to look at this hand again. He looks down at the 2 10s, realizes it's vulnerable, but he doesn't want to discourage action from the hands that he might have beat, and he just comes in here for 4 times the big blind. A nice normal opening raise, but he's leaving himself options. And he's allowing a hand like 2 8s to call. This is now a situation where it's a very reasonable call to call with 2 8s, a normal opening raise from Dan. And if he had been lucky enough not to run into Damon's kings in the big blind, he might have won a nice pot from Jessica. But instead, he did run into the 2 kings. The 2 kings moves all in, but he's left himself options, and he can fold the hand and wait for a better situation.
I can't tell you how many times pros have told me, you know, sometimes the best option is folding.
Absolutely, but if you don't leave yourself that option, then you can't make that good play.
Professor, thanks again for the knowledge. We appreciate it. We are coming back with a great roundtable right after this. So how do you actually push the chips in? I'm no good at that.
Hi, I'm Chris Ferguson. People call me Jesus. I can't walk on water, But I can do this with a deck of cards. And this. And this. And now I'll show you how it's done. A lot of people ask me what I eat to prepare for a poker tournament, and my favorite food is actually a fruit salad. And I'm going to show you my special way of preparing it. And here to help me is my assistant chef, Lisa.
Bananas, anyone?
I like to cut a banana using a regular deck of playing cards. The grip I use is called a Thurston grip. The card is held loosely between the index and the middle finger. You want to stand about 5 to 10 feet away, so for a banana you want a very fluid release. Now that we have the motion down, it's time to chop some salad.